Welcome to the Homeschool Mom Chat. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk all about Homeschool High School with Vicki. Vicki Tillman is she's a coach, she's a counselor, and she is the Homeschool High School podcast host. And I'm inviting her to have a conversation with me about all things Homeschool High School. So here are just a few of the topics that we're going to be speaking to today that I know are super valuable when we're transitioning from the junior high to high school years. So am I doing enough? You know that question, am I doing enough? It's a thing that originates in early homeschool years, but it gets highlighted in the high school years. So what about preparing a teen for college or frankly for high school? College prep without definite college plans. How do I know that my child's going to go to college? Or if they don't go to college, should I be getting ready to prep them for college? What about formal programs? Should I do that, or should I create a self-designed curriculum? How do I create a transcript? Is there a way to create a transcript that's actually considered legit by the mom, or is there a different way we need to approach that? The importance of developing portfolios and keeping track of all the important things that kids are doing in high school, and college essays and applications. And Vicki just had a podcast episode last week on the Homeschool High School podcast all about how to write an effective college essay. And of course, my area of focus for the Homeschool High School mom is all about transitioning, the experience, the emotional experience, and all the different elements, how we shift in how we show up as a homeschool mom. So I'm so glad you're here. If you've got questions for us, you're welcome to put them in the comment section, and I'll make sure that we have another conversation all about homeschooling high school. I welcome Vicki Tillman to the podcast. If I haven't already introduced myself, I'm Teresa. I'm the certified life coach turned homeschool mom. Yeah. Graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach. Hi, Vicki.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
it's good to see you.
Busy days. And, when we're transitioning from the junior high school years to the high school years, it feels like another layer of responsibility and busyness. But what was your experience in those years?
High school, it were the best years of all. Absolutely. But I don't remember because it was such a variety of kids.
Yes.
So we are busy.
Right? That's the way to characterize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the best years ever. It's just so good to be able to invest in our kids' lives.
Yeah.
And to help them become who they are supposed to be.
Yeah. That's exactly the thing. And the homeschooling angle, just reinforces you're allowing them space, you're helping them to go in a direction that really serves them, and you're again customizing an education to who the child is right in front of you. Yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity, but it also comes with this feeling of, I don't know that I'm going to do this right, or I'm doing enough. It highlights that intensity of those questions that we already have when they're little.
Yeah. Well, like one of the questions that you asked, you had a list of questions on the Facebook group that we could talk about. And one is, how do you know if you've done enough?
Yeah.
And enough is like doing the dishes. No matter how many dishes you wash, when you walk out of the kitchen and go back in, they've reappeared. It just happens, And doing enough is kind of like that, is no matter how much you do, there's always so many more things you could do or wish you had time to do. So one of the things I learned early on is we just learned to be good enough.
Yeah.
And to enjoy as much as we can. So if we stay in the zone, like a Venn diagram of good enough and enjoying most of it. Now, I never learned how to enjoy chemistry with my kids, but if we can enjoy most of it, it's a place.
I like that Venn diagram of good enough. And what was the other one you said?
And enjoying most of it.
Enjoying most of it. That's really good. That's quotable. You definitely will hear that. I thrilled in your podcast or by your podcast over the years that there's not one right way to homeschool. And there certainly is not one right way to homeschool high school. There's not one right way to live a life. And if we're equipping them to really embrace who they are and what they're all about earlier, then they're going to continue doing that in high school and beyond. But I often hear people really concerned that, but what will they have enough of what they need before they get to college? And I truly do hear this a lot, where people are concerned about their kids when they're really young, like 9 or 12 or something. And will they have what they need in their final year? And I'm like, oh, girlfriend, there's light years in your child's development between 12 and 17 or 12 and 18. So you can go towards a certain trajectory, but if they're convinced they're going to go to an engineering program when they're 12, that may or may not happen when they're 18.
Yeah, that's, when I hear moms feeling that kind of pressure, I try to help them to think about, if we give away today worrying about tomorrow, we have lost today. And really, today's all we really have.
Yeah.
So why not enjoy today? And
Mm.
why teach children to love life and love learning and notice and become and invest in their character, and they can build the transcript they need. If they are going off to Harvard or something like that, we can start on that around 8th grade or 9th grade, but don't miss childhood,
Yeah.
trying to form for the future. So that's the Vicki's one right way, but really there's not one right way. Some kids are born doing college stuff when they're 9 years old, so there's all kind of different kids, but just because your neighbor's kid may be going to college when they're 13 doesn't mean your kid is supposed to. Maybe your kid is supposed to be the best carpenter on the block,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and for me, I'm always focusing on who is the child in front of you, because you might have this idea that there is a college degree that every child needs. If you think that way, not everyone does nowadays, but some people do. And so if you might have that as an ideal, but that might not suit the child that you birthed or one of the, 5 or 6 or 2 kids. And so pushing them towards something that they were never meant to or want to do is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and what for us, my kids were all college bound. They were just that was their gift, and we really focused on a college appropriate transcript once they were in high school. But we tried to make the most of loving learning and having experiences and read alouds and fun stuff while they were younger, hoping my hope for them was they would have enough emotional energy to build high school the way they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have fun in too.
Yeah.
There needs to be enough fun in life.
There does. I certainly learned early on, I don't remember where I got this from originally, but to actually learn how to record what they were practically doing in a way that was acceptable on a portfolio or on a transcript. And
Mhm.
that was like a little shocking for my brain, because I'm like, is this legit? Like, am I being an imposter? So what do you say? Because I know that other people are feeling those feelings. They speak that to me. What would you say to a mom like that?
Well, I tell you what is I served as the academic advisor for the upperclassmen in our local community for almost 20 years. And what we did is we helped teens pick the kind of college credits, high school credits they needed if they were college bound.
Mm-hmm.
So did they need a textbook or a class? Or if it's something they truly loved, could they go make something, especially if there wasn't a textbook that didn't bore them to tears, that they would log hours. So we called it a Carnegie credit because Carnegie Foundation defined what a credit was back in the 90s something. And so what they said is you needed 120 hours of
Yeah.
instruction. All right, but nobody ever defined instruction. So if you are doing your own explorations or making your own projects or writing your own research papers or reading real books. All of those, that's instruction, it's personal instruction. So we would have a log sheet that we would keep, and whatever they were working on, so they would log it down. So I'm one of my kids wanted to know the history of church music, because at church they were playing music that really irritated him, and he wanted to know whether we had to have music. So he did a whole credit, I'm not kidding, he studied like what kind of music people played back in ancient Israel, and like all around the world, what kind of music. And so it turned out to be this marvelous geography credit, but he just logged hours on what he was doing, and he turned it into a research paper at the end of the year. So that was a Carnegie credit that he earned. There was no textbook. He just wanted to know and may as well put it on the transcript.
Which could also be translated as informally as a very unschooled doctoral statement. Deep dive.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's true. Like, who decides what the credit hours are going to be? But that's what I remember too, is 120 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember track my oldest daughter's all of her activities at about grade 8, and so then I started to get practice there. But when my second daughter graduated and we put a transcript together, even some of her friends are like, is that legal? Like, can you give a transcript to a college? And it turned out college was like, I don't care. I don't care what it is. Just write it down. And I was surprised at the response. But also, she had way too many credits. Like,
Oh,
there were many.
yeah.
That's the problem with homeschool high school kid.
Yeah, I mean, our kids tend to graduate, you need about 24 with a lot of colleges around here. And our kids would graduate with 30 or 40 credits. And, but what we decided to let them show them all, put all those credits on the transcript. One, it's kind of like a souvenir of high school. So you can get that out, and you're just kind of like, oh, look at all that cool stuff I did. But also when they go to apply for college, it shows the richness of their experience and their willingness to invest in interest. And what colleges are often looking for is sparkle.
Yeah.
That's a sparkle. So
Yes.
we never had a college say, you got too many credits. They had never said that to us.
Yeah, I like that. That's sparkle. And I certainly see that with kids that are allowed to move toward their interests more,
Mm-hmm.
that they just simply are more engaged with it. And then they do follow all those rabbit trails.
Mm-hmm.
So benefit. But it's, when you're in the new space of being a homeschool mom moving toward high school, you just think, okay, am I doing this? This is like big. And everybody around you is asking you, are you really doing this?
Yeah.
They are thinking, this is too big. I'm not sure. It's too consequential. But from my perspective, and I know that, you're more, you came from a state, or you come from an area that is more college focused, and
Mm-hmm.
of course my focused, but I come from more of an unschooled environment. And both of those, no matter where you come from, ultimately, if you're 18 and you don't have exactly what you want for the college program, you can go get it. You can still stay. You can take classes. You can figure a way to get access into that college. It's everything done at age 18.
Yeah. And that's not just homeschoolers. Like if a young person discovers a goal,
Yeah.
they figure out how to get there and just use their creativity. So I can give a goofy example from the dark ages. So when I was a kid going into college, I had no idea what I wanted to study. No idea, So I went in as an English major because I like books. So I wanted to read books. But I knew that wasn't going to be my end goal. But somewhere along the line, I discovered bird watching and got into wanted to be an ornithologist. And I knew I could not, I was at the community college, I couldn't transfer over the University of Florida with my grades because I wasn't that strong in sciences.
Yeah.
But I could get great grades in English and then change majors once I got to UD, which is what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, University of Florida. So I figured out a way to make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
And so
story, and my husband's got that story, and dozens of people Usually, I've actually heard the stats, and I don't remember the exact number.
Mhm.
Probably changes from year to year, but people that go into college in their first year, they shift their their majors, like, or sometimes drop out at 70. I think it's a 75% or 70%.
Yeah.
It's really high. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I know my kids who taught college, one of their jobs is to try to keep kids coming back. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it, a high rate of people just saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
But high schoolers, like I worked with high schoolers who didn't know what they wanted to do. So, in fact, they were pretty sure they didn't want
Hmm.
college
Yeah.
until senior
Right.
year, and then they want college. And so what we did is then we would do maybe a dual enrollment course or something to let them experiment with that,
Yeah.
or just go graduate high school with their transcripts
Hmm.
and start off at the community college where they can make up for anything that is lost. Like they maybe be a little weaker in math because they didn't do pre-calc, so they do some of the intro math at the community college. And so it didn't shut any doors for them. It just, they didn't go to Harvard or something, right off the bat. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I remember interviewing someone that was from Harvard, and she was like, I think it's overrated. And I was taken aback. I was surprised at her response because I said, most people in the homeschool space kind of hope or think maybe that our child will go to Harvard without, of course, all of us factoring in how much that would actually cost. Um, yeah, that right there. But the notion that we're giving our child the leg up, so they should be able to go that direction. But she actually surprised me, and she's like, I don't know, like it was good. I was surprised, but to each their own, because I know that there's a lot of great post-secondary schools and loads of really interesting, engaging instructors in those places. But every child isn't destined in that direction, and life doesn't end at 18. I think that's the key. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we're still growing and learning and deciding to do the next thing.
Mhm.
Do, do you remember what it was like to transition from, especially with your first, from the younger years into the high school years? Or were you saying it was kind of a blur?
Yeah, yeah. I put my brain to it and I pull
Yeah.
it up. So, um, yeah, in middle school, when we were starting to think about high school, do remember when my first one was facing high school. Like I could see it coming down the pike. This was early days of homeschooling in our area, and so there were no role models for us
Mm.
in those days.
Wow.
But there were a group in our like local area. I found other moms that were about to go into high school too. There were about 5 or 6 of us, and we would get together and we would have, shows my age, we would have a rap group. My kids are horrified, but in those days a rap group means you sit around and talk about something.
Oh,
And
I
so we sat around.
think you're rapping.
Yeah, my kids would, if they heard mom used to have a rap group, oh, they're so embarrassed. But in the old days, that meant you were talking about something, and so we were talking about what would we do about high school. So we all just sat and talked it out and talked about dreams and did research together. So we what we did is we planned to take our 8th grade kids and introduce some more textbooks to them so they got a feel of being grown up. So they had a math book, they did, but we added a history or a science book just so they had the experience of reading a textbook,
Yeah.
in case they decided, because high school you're supposed to do textbooks. So our kids are doing these textbooks,
Yeah.
and they that was all the transitioning we did
Oh,
for high school. Yeah.
do you know, somebody had asked me recently, because she does have someone that's younger, but this child is very academically engaged and like unusually at that age. And she's got this big dream of going into a particular kind of post-secondary school that's more, it's got a cachet. And she was asking me, what would you have done differently? And I said, there is one thing. I remember when it's actually not normal or typical for people to dual enroll where we are. It's not like just a thing where in the United States it's kind of a thing. But so I looked into it and found a way for it to happen because she was interested in doing a college course, and then it turned into a couple. But she did this one college course, and the very first time she just thought, well, I've like never been in a classroom except for kindergarten, and then she was daunted. She was afraid that these kids are going to be so far ahead of her, which is often mom's fear, oftentimes. But she was afraid she was going to be they were going to be so far ahead of her, and they're going to know how to interact with everything. And then what really happened was she was very conscientious, as per most many homeschool kids. And it turns out that classmates were asking her for the reading notes, and hey, did you read that assignment, or can you give me a little bit more information about that? She was surprised by that. She wasn't expecting
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that in high school you let a kid run with what they want. So this young person loved learning, and so she was ahead of where these kids were.
Right.
But I have found my experience, the stories the kids tell me, is our high schoolers generally learn to use a syllabus and write good papers and all in high school. And so I've had homeschool graduates come back to me and say, in my freshman year, in my first class, I was the only person who knew what a syllabus was.
Yeah,
Or my
exactly. Yeah.
and his friends were in freshman comp together. And so the teacher called them up after the first paper was turned in and graded, called them to stay after class, and they thought they were in trouble. You know, the college professor calls you, and she just wanted to know where they learned to write so well,
Wow. That's amazing.
because they gained some skills over high school. So, but they were running with their interests in high school. They were writing about things that were interesting and learning formats and all, intentionally. So anyway, yeah, homeschooling doesn't close doors.
And it usually
There's
does the opposite. It usually is, you don't realize how well they're doing
yeah,
actually until you see them in that scenario. Of
yeah.
course, there's always good exceptions, but that exactly in my experience. And also the very first time that went into a college class was to gain entrance into that college. She needed to do a certain exam to get into that post-secondary school. And so she did it with 60 other kids, and she had never taken an official proctored exam like that before. So she said to me, now that would have been helpful for me to get a little bit more
Mm,
experience with, just for confidence, not because she
that,
didn't do well. She did very
yeah,
well.
that's a thought. Yeah, because as those are stressful tests to sit there at the proctor staring at
The
everybody.
first,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, you had conversation last week on the podcast. I believe it was like an episode ago about college essay writing that
Yeah.
I think everyone should definitely listen. But you have loads of resources, for homeschool high school. Where would you suggest a mom even start?
There's a couple of suggestions if you don't mind, going to Seven Sisters
Of
Homeschool
course.
or the Homeschool High
Yeah.
School podcast. So one is we have tons of blog posts on how to's.
Yeah.
And if you look for our authoritative guide to transitioning to high school, so you link to that in the Facebook group, or the authoritative guide for homeschooling high school. So it's just a long blog post on how to get started.
Yes.
But we also have a free course that's a self-paced course for grown-ups on are you feeling intimidated about high school? So you can
That's
just
perfect.
click the link, and it
Yeah.
has a few lessons on, okay, let's just walk through how to get started, because what we want is for everybody to feel like you can do this, and
Yeah.
it's hard, but it's wonderful. It's the best years of all. So yeah, Seven Sisters Homeschool, Homeschool High School podcast. We're here to support. Also, if you don't have a hands-on person, somebody who can really walk with you, because it's no fun alone. We moms are meant to do things together. Um, you need a full life coach, like
Well, I would say that I want to take that course back 5, 6, 10, whatever it was years ago,
yeah,
because For me, it was more about confidence. It's the same energy.
Mhm.
In homeschooling, we're so scared about so many things, but then we determine to work hard, and there's gumption in a homeschool mom. She's gonna do it
Yes.
and she'll figure it out. But
Yep.
all we need is like an IV infusion of confidence every once in a while. But we need more of it right before the high school years, because you get a whole lot more people asking you questions like, "You're not really going to do
Yeah.
high school."
Yeah. But
Yeah,
you can do it, and there's not one right way. You do it the way that's right for you. And there are a lot of people out there to support, like Teresa and Seven Sisters. We love other homeschool moms. We want to be supportive, so we
exactly.
can do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And we
Yeah,
like deep into other conversations at different points, but I know you've got a busy day too. And I told you I would keep it tight. But I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, because
yeah.
if anything, let people just receive the energy that you really can do this. You can gain the confidence to do it. Just do a little research so that you are confident.
All right, I
So
got one distracting thing I gotta say.
yes.
So last time we did a Facebook Live, for some reason the filter gave us these beautiful eyelashes. Do you remember that? Like it did, like it put these eyelashes on us with, and I was thinking how nice, but we have no eyelashes that
Yep.
are. And
Lashes today. Yeah, I mean, I don't see my wrinkles as much, so that'll work.
yeah,
This is the life of a homeschool mom all grown up that spends a lot of time on screens.
yeah,
For being here, and we're definitely going to return to the homeschool high school conversation, because I want to bolster people with
yeah,
confidence, unquestionably.
yes,
And you haven't met me, I'm Teresa. I'm from the Homeschool Mama Self-Care podcast, but I am the life coach for homeschool moms. And Vicki Tillman, you can find her over at Seven Sisters Homeschool and Homeschool High School podcast. And I'm also really good at saying H words fast, repeatedly. Alliteration. We get a lot of practice, me and Vicki. It's lovely to see you here.
yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.